What's up, everybody? Curtis Blaydes versus Derrick Lewis is off. Not happening. At least not November 28th. Instead, we've got Anthony Smith versus Devin Clark being promoted to the main event. 5-round fight per the UFC. Last minute, short notice. COVID bug strikes again. Blaydes tests positive for COVID. He's out. Matt, how you feeling about this? This is a big blow to the card.
Yeah, this was already a very, 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 very weak card by UFC Fight Night card standards. Even this is a step above a Contender Series card. Here is what we're looking at, and it sucks because I was really, really looking forward to that Blaydes versus Lewis matchup. There's a lot of intriguing elements that could go on there. You know, how many times was Curtis Blaydes going to put Derrick Lewis down, and then Derrick just be like, "All right, I'm tired of being down here," and power back up through. But, that's no longer going to happen, at least now. Maybe next month if they reschedule it and everything is all good. But it sucks, man, that COVID is still ravaging these cards, man. There's been so many instances of coronavirus canceling fights, despite Dana White and the UFC's best efforts to push through. As many fights as they put on, they've had a ton of fights canceled. We can run down the list if you want.
If you want to, we can. I feel like UFC 255 didn't have a COVID cancellation. But prior to that, I feel like almost every single event they've had since being back from Fight Island there's been COVID bugs striking. And before Fight Island, right? That was such a huge problem where they just had COVID all over the place.
Yeah, 249 was the first event that got, officially canceled, right? And then, like you said, almost every event since then. Shout out to the good guys over there at Bloody Elbow, I believe. They've kept a comprehensive list of everything going on. Actually, it's MMA Mania. Sorry. They've kept a comprehensive list of everybody that's tested positive, and I stopped counting at like 50, whether it be fighters and or cornermen causing their fighters to be pulled off of cards. So like the list is not short by any means, and it sucks, as much as certain people want to believe that COVID isn't like a real issue. It certainly is ravaging these cards.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where talking with Dr. Reeves, who's the health physician for Sanford MMA, right? Originally, he wasn't particularly worried about the side effects of COVID on athletes. He said that we've got guys that are ideally in peak physical shape, or at least in very good physical shape. It's gonna still make them feel fatigued, give them some issues, but for the most part, it's not going to affect them long term. But we've seen more and more now that people are pulling out, and I forget who it was, but I saw someone on Twitter had compiled a list of the records of people where they've had COVID, had to pull out, and then they fought. And I think outside of Alexander Romanov, who's gone 2-0, everyone at least has one loss, and multiple have gone 0-2 or 0-3 in some cases. Since COVID hit, and we're finding out new information about the heart and how this I think it's myocarditis. If I'm butchering that, if anybody knows medical terms, that's putting athletes who were in otherwise peak physical condition on the sidelines. In college football, we've seen people have to end their seasons. Professional football, we've seen a couple of cases of that. It's a big deal.
Jeez.
So. Yeah, as it continues to ravage, the UFC, one has to wonder too: do they need to set up a full-scale bubble like they do at, Fight Island, right? Where they have the tests coming in, but then you quarantine everybody, you force everyone to stay there. You're only allowed to take cards. Is that the next step here? Because otherwise, as cases spike, I'm assuming this is going to keep happening.
Oh, of course. The fact that they're not, I don't know exactly what the process is in Vegas. So let me not speak on that like in absolutes. But we know how it is over at Fight Island, right? Like everybody's locked into their rooms, and you can't leave until you get your certain color wristband and everything like that, indicating what level of quarantine you're on. I don't think that that's the same in Vegas, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But I can speak to, I have seen some reporters covering events just in the past week, out on the strip, taking selfies with people without wearing masks, and they're covering the event. So I can speak to that much. It's unfortunate because, as much as we as fans and media, we're also fans. Like, we want to see these fights take place, but we also are concerned for the health and well-being of everyone. When it doesn't seem like the protocols are 100% where they should be at times, because it's like, at the end of the day, like, what are we doing here? Are we trying to just kind of give lip service to this whole idea of protecting everyone involved in covering these events and or fighting, and whether you're a cornerman or whatever have you? I'm kind of questioning, like, what's the process in Vegas right now? And it kind of, it's like, man, we shouldn't have this many issues, because you can look over to the NBA, who ran an entire, pre-playoff leading up to the playoff all the way to the end of the playoffs in the finals with 0 positive tests. That is super impressive. And their bubble was obviously very, very effective. So I just don't see what the differences is between the NBA, who has significantly more people. When you're talking about full squads of teams and coaches and everything, and production crews and everything covering these games, and the UFC, it's just like every single time there's people testing positive.
Yeah. And I mean, it's, I will give kudos to the UFC for getting the testing widespread enough that we're not hearing of any cases of somebody tested positive for COVID after a fight, or,
Sure.
Any of that stuff. So they're doing a good job catching it to prevent these guys from going in. And especially, this is the fight game. We've seen brutal knockouts. We've seen, we've seen things where even just Alex Pereira at LFA, right? That knockout was, oof, like, that guy was down forever. And so if you add in somebody with COVID, especially with the inflammation issues and everything else going on, it's good that they're at least catching it before the fighters step in the octagon. But as you said, it's also kind of well, how many weeks are we going to go through this where, nope, somebody was pulled for COVID, or this was a whole issue? The NBA is the only organization that hasn't had COVID problems. And they set up a bubble and they said, guess what? We're staying in this bubble. That's it. Even the UFC has shown, when you set up the bubble on Fight Island, right? How many COVID pullets have we had? Maybe 1 or 2 when they first arrived, but it's never been, at fight week. It's never been the day or 2 before where all of a sudden it's like, hey, you got pulled due to COVID. It's always a week in advance when they arrive, and oh yeah, test revealed, guess what? You have COVID, and we've got to pull it here. It makes such a difference. And I feel like what the UFC has to do going forward, especially to keep these last few cards intact before we've got that break coming up after December 19th, is you've got to do something, whether it's designate a single hotel where this is where all the fighters are staying, and then you basically say, hey, you can't leave, setting up security to go do things, or doing logistics in order to get fighters food, or what have you. There's got to be something going on that prevents people from leaving, because I think, as you mentioned, again, media is going out. I would assume, from what I've seen, fighters and coaches can go out as well. They might not be posting it on social media as much, but I from what I know and what I've heard, fighters are allowed to leave. They're just told, like, hey, be cautious, all of that stuff. But it's not actually enforcing it. And here we are again, day of the fight, or a day before the fight, and the main event's canceled. That's, ugh.
Yeah. And imagine being like, yeah, you guys can leave. We're in Las Vegas, by the way. Like, of all cities to be in, to wander around. I mean, listen, like, Vegas is not necessarily the cleanest of reputations, right? I mean, anybody that's ever walked, outside in Vegas, especially on the Strip during the day, it's kind of like, wow, like, is this like, what's going on here? It just feels nasty. I don't know. Vegas at night hits different, though. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. But I mean, we're at this point, man, to where we really have to, I guess, kind of reevaluate. And I don't want to, like, come off like, because I know some people are gonna, like, kind of watch this and they'll be like, oh, these guys are just happy to report that there's another COVID issue. Like, I've seen that,
Yeah.
like, not only like with our outlet in particular, but other outlets, you know, like when people report on positive COVID cases, especially like in the NFL, right? Shoot, my fantasy team this week got ravaged. I have 4 guys who now have had the COVID label attached to them. And it's not like we're definitely not happy, you know, to report this kind of stuff. We have to question it, man. We have to say, okay, what protocols are not being, you know, executed properly? Where can improvements be made? And I mean, it all comes back to, what did the NBA do that was so effective? And why are you not doing that? Because like I said, man, I said a few minutes ago, at the end of the day, we want to get through this stuff and have everybody be healthy and everybody get paid, everybody go home, and then, you know, do it again whenever it's time for, you know, those fighters to step into the cage again.
Yeah. You got to remember, like, I take no joy in this. We take no joy in this. This sucks. I mean, this makes the card significantly worse. My MMA fantasy belt, which I've shown multiple times, is now in danger because I had Curtis Blaydes. So that's just, you know, no, I mean, like, it sucks. And it sucks far more for the fighters, right? Like, imagine being Derrick Lewis or Curtis Blaydes, going through that training camp, getting all the way to, okay, I'm going to go ahead and you know, day before the fight, I'm ready to go. And then you get pulled and saying, hey, we're going to try and reschedule sometime in December. We'll see what happens. That is not great for a fighter. That means you get paid later. That means you have to kind of keep training, right? You have to stay fresh. Can't just relax. If we're talking about later December, you know, holidays are coming up again. I'm sure Derrick Lewis is pissed because he already probably was waiting to hold off on eating Thanksgiving food. And all of a sudden, you know, he's got to wait longer. I can't imagine at this point. Same with Blaydes. That's got to suck. So it's one of those things where it's important to look at the protocols. We've seen the UFC have success in that bubble. We've seen the scenarios where they have events where nobody, you know, pulls out due to COVID. It's time to bring that to Las Vegas, right? I mean, Anthony Smith is happy, I'm sure, because this is what his 7th main event at this point in a row. Because once again, stepping up and taking that place, but it's. You know, it's bonkers. It's got to stop. We can't have, you know, think about the December 19th card. Khamzat Chimaev, Leon Edwards. Think about that. What if one of them tests positive? I mean, that sinks our ship. So no, we do not we do not care for positive COVID cases. This is not a happy time.
No, it's not. It sucks, man. It sucks. I hope that it doesn't happen, especially to any more main events. I hope it doesn't happen, period. But I mean, when it happens to the main event, it really, really hits different. It really does. It's a staunch reminder, you know, as we see people camping outside of stores for Black Friday deals. Like, we are still very much in a pandemic, people. Like, no matter how much you want to believe it's fake news or whatever have you, like, the deaths and the cases are piling up. And it's time to take it seriously. Yeah, vaccine is close, but it's not here yet. So until then, please do your part. For everybody out there watching, please do your part. Wear a mask. You know, stay safe. Don't do anything unnecessary that can exacerbate this thing. So, man, I want this thing to be over with like 8 months ago, but it's not happening like that. So, you know, we have too many stubborn people out there. So, you know, whatever it's going to take, man, let's get it done. I want to be able to get back to what we used to know as normal, where we could just settle in for a fight card, settle in for a football game, whatever have you, not worry about who's going to test positive for the global pandemic that has killed, you know, untold number of people.
Yeah. I mean, it's at this point, it's, you know, over 250,000 in the US alone, and it sucks. And the vaccine is, you know, it's right there. Hopefully in December, we get that emergency use authorization, start rolling that out. I mean, it's the light is at the end of the tunnel, people. Just hold off a little bit longer. I know the fatigue. I'm with you there. All I want to do is, you know, go out to a normal sporting event, cover a fight, right? Something. and here we are. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. Give us your thoughts on if the UFC needs to change up their protocols. You know, what can the UFC do at this point to stop this stuff from happening, especially since it looks like we're getting closer to the end of this thing, hopefully. What can they do in the meantime so that come December 19th, come UFC 256, we're not, scrounging for, 8 fight cards and getting, 2 up and coming fight contenders or contender series prospect, coming up, because that's all we've got. So let us know your thoughts below. Any final thoughts on this, Matt? Feel like we put a bow on this thing, but anything else?
No. Also, if Anthony Smith is your favorite headlining UFC fighter ever, leave in the comments below why that is.
Yeah, I mean, 7 times now because of 2 dropouts recently. I mean, he's 5-round fight 7 times in a row. Let us know about that too, definitely.